Imagine you're 20 years old. You wake up, reach for your phone, and before you've even gotten out of bed, you've already seen political arguments, breaking news, government announcements, protests, advertisements, and thousands of opinions from people you've never met. Then you see something else. An app asking for your location, a website asking for your age, a service asking for your identity, an algorithm deciding what appears on your screen. And suddenly, a strange question comes to mind. In a world where governments make the rules, but technology controls what we see, who actually has the power? For the first time in history, an entire generation has grown up with the ability to reach millions of people without needing a television network, newspaper, publisher, or political organization. That generation is Gen Z. They don't just consume information, they create it, they remix it, they spread it, they challenge it. Sometimes they organize around it. But governments have something Gen Z doesn't: legal authority. Governments can create laws, regulate companies, collect taxes, control borders, enforce regulations, and, depending on the country, restrict or regulate information and digital platforms. So this isn't simply Gen Z versus the government. The real question is much bigger. When a generation raised on the internet collides with institutions built for an older world, who wins? Gen Z grew up during an extraordinary period. They watched wars unfold through smartphone screens. They watched political debates become viral clips. They watched protests spread through hashtags. They watched ordinary people become global voices overnight. Previous generations needed newspapers, television stations, publishers, or political organizations to reach millions. Gen Z can potentially do it from a bedroom. One video, one post, one live stream, one hashtag, and suddenly, millions of people know. That changed something fundamental. The gatekeepers were losing their monopoly on attention. But governments didn't disappear. They adapted. And so did the battle. The battlefield isn't always a street. Sometimes it's a screen. A government introduces a new law. Someone posts about it. Another person responds. A creator explains it. Someone else criticizes it. A hashtag starts trending. A politician responds. News organizations pick it up. Millions of people suddenly have an opinion. And within hours, a policy that most people had never heard about becomes a national argument. This is the new political environment. Fast, emotional, decentralized, and incredibly difficult to control. But there's a problem. The same technology that allows people to challenge power can also spread misinformation. A false claim can travel faster than a correction. A manipulated video can look real. A rumor can become a political weapon. And suddenly, governments face another question. How do you regulate the digital world without controlling legitimate speech? That is one of the biggest political battles of the modern age. But there's another layer to this story. Attention. Imagine a government wants to communicate with citizens. It can publish a statement. But Gen Z may never see it, because most people don't experience the internet as a government website. They experience it through platforms, search engines, social networks, recommendation systems, algorithms. That means a strange new layer of power has appeared. The power to decide what gets attention. Governments have political power. Technology companies have platform power. Creators have cultural power. And users have the power to amplify or ignore all of them. So who is really in control? The answer is uncomfortable. Nobody completely is. Now think about your phone. It may know where you go, what you search, what you watch, who you communicate with, what you buy, what you like, what you dislike, what you pause on, what you skip. Individually, these actions may seem meaningless. But collectively, they can reveal enormous amounts about human behavior. And that creates a new kind of power: data. Governments want data for security, administration, and law enforcement. Companies want data for advertising and personalization. Researchers want data for analysis. And users want privacy. These interests don't always align. For Gen Z, this creates a strange contradiction. They grew up sharing enormous parts of their lives online, while simultaneously becoming one of the generations most aware of digital privacy. And now, governments around the world are debating how much data platforms should collect, what companies should be allowed to do with it, and what authorities should be able to access. The question becomes, who owns your digital life? You, the company, or the state? And the debate doesn't stop with data. Around the world, governments are expanding digital services, digital identification, online government services, electronic payments, digital records, and increasingly sophisticated systems for verifying who someone is. There are obvious benefits: less paperwork, faster services, greater convenience. But there is another question. What happens when more and more of your identity becomes digital? If your identity exists inside a system, who controls that system? And what happens if access is denied? These questions are no longer science fiction. They are becoming real policy debates. And Gen Z will live with the consequences longer than almost anyone else. Perhaps one of the biggest challenges for governments is trust. Gen Z has grown up in an environment where information is everywhere, but certainty is rare. They can hear a politician make one claim and immediately search for 10 people saying the opposite. They can watch a news report and then see a completely different interpretation on social media. They can watch a government announcement and within minutes see people dissecting it online. This changes the relationship between citizens and institutions. Authority used to come from position. I'm the expert. Now people often ask, prove it. That's a massive cultural shift. And it isn't necessarily good or bad. Skepticism can protect people from manipulation. But excessive distrust can also make people vulnerable to conspiracy theories and false information. And governments have to operate inside that tension. Sometimes online arguments become real-world movements. A post becomes a gathering. A hashtag becomes a protest. A video becomes evidence. A live stream becomes a witness. Young people around the world have used digital platforms to organize around issues ranging from climate change and education to political reform and economic concerns. The internet can make organization incredibly fast, but it can also make movements incredibly fragile. Because the same algorithm that makes something viral today can make everyone forget it tomorrow. A movement can gain millions of views without creating lasting political change. And that reveals another uncomfortable truth. Attention is not the same as power. Gen Z may control attention, but governments control institutions. They make laws. They collect taxes. They regulate businesses. They control public infrastructure. They operate courts. They command police and security institutions. And in democracies, governments ultimately derive authority through constitutional and electoral systems. So when Gen Z says, "We can change the world," the government can answer, "We make the rules under which the world operates." And that's why this isn't a simple battle between young people and politicians. It's a collision between decentralized cultural power and centralized institutional power. One moves at internet speed. The other moves through laws, procedures, and institutions. And that difference matters. But there's something governments cannot easily control. Millions of people thinking and communicating independently. Gen Z has grown up with something previous generations never possessed at this scale: the ability to communicate horizontally, not from the top down, from person to person. One person influences another. That person influences 10. Those 10 influence hundreds. Hundreds influence thousands. And suddenly, a narrative exists without a central leader. That can be incredibly powerful, but it can also be incredibly dangerous. Because decentralized communication doesn't automatically produce truth. It can produce misinformation just as efficiently as it produces facts. And that is the paradox of the digital age. The same system that can challenge power can also manipulate millions And now we add artificial intelligence. This could change the entire battle. Imagine a future where political messages can be generated automatically. Millions of personalized videos, synthetic voices, AI-generated images, deepfakes, automated propaganda, personalized political persuasion, and millions of pieces of content created faster than humans can verify them. Suddenly, the question isn't only, who controls the government? It's, who controls the information environment? And perhaps even more importantly, can anyone control it? Gen Z may be among the first generations to grow up navigating this world from the beginning. They may learn to recognize AI-generated content as naturally as previous generations learned to recognize television advertising. But the technology will also become more sophisticated. The line between reality and manufactured reality could become harder to see. And when citizens can't agree on what is real, democracy faces a serious problem. So who has the power? Gen Z? The government? Technology companies? The answer is, all of them. And none of them completely. Governments have institutional power. Technology companies have technological power. Creators have cultural power. Ordinary people have collective power. But each kind of power has weaknesses. Government can make laws, but laws cannot force people to trust. Platforms can control distribution, but users can leave. Creators can influence millions, but influence can disappear overnight. And Gen Z can create enormous cultural pressure, but pressure doesn't automatically become policy. That's why the real battle isn't about one side defeating another. It's about who controls the rules of the digital world. And this battle is only beginning. Governments are asking, how old should you be to use social media? How should platforms handle harmful content? How should AI be regulated? How should personal data be protected? How much surveillance is acceptable? How can elections be protected from manipulation? And Gen Z is asking, who decides? Who watches the watchers? Who owns our data? Who controls our speech? And perhaps the most important question, who gets to decide what the internet becomes? Because the internet is no longer just technology. It is where people work, where people learn, where people socialize, where people build businesses, where political movements grow, where culture is created, and increasingly, where people live part of their lives. For centuries, governments had something incredibly powerful. Information was scarce. If you controlled the newspaper, the radio, or the television, you could influence what millions of people knew. The internet changed that. Now information is abundant. But abundance created a new problem. Attention became scarce. And whoever controls attention can influence what people care about. That means the future battle may not be about controlling information. It may be about controlling what people notice. And that's why Gen Z matters. Because Gen Z grew up in the attention economy. They understand virality. They understand memes. They understand algorithms. They understand how quickly a narrative can explode. But governments are learning too. Technology companies are learning too. Everyone is learning. And that's what makes the future so unpredictable. So, who has the power? The government? It has laws. Gen Z? It has numbers and cultural influence. Technology companies? They control platforms. AI? It may soon amplify all of them. But perhaps the greatest power still belongs to the individual. The ability to question. The ability to verify. The ability to think before sharing. The ability to vote. The ability to organize. The ability to speak. And perhaps most importantly, the ability to refuse to let an algorithm do your thinking for you. Because governments can make rules. Companies can build platforms. Algorithms can recommend what you watch. AI can generate what you see. But there is one thing none of them should completely control: your judgment. Gen Z isn't simply fighting the government. And the government isn't simply fighting Gen Z. They are both entering a world where the meaning of power itself is changing. The old world asked, who controls the institutions? The new world asks, who controls the information? And the future may ask something even more frightening. Who controls the machines that control the information? That is the battle coming next. And Gen Z will be standing right in the middle of it. Gen Z versus government. Maybe the question was never, who has the power? Maybe the real question is, who will control it when the rules change? So, after everything we've seen, who really has the power? Gen Z, the government, technology companies, or the algorithms quietly deciding what millions of people see every day? The truth is, power is no longer sitting in one place. For centuries, governments had the advantage because they controlled institutions, laws, borders, armies, and information. But the internet changed the equation. Now, a teenager with a smartphone can reach millions. One video can expose a problem. One post can start a movement. One hashtag can force politicians to respond. For Gen Z, this isn't unusual. It's simply the world they grew up in. But there is a dangerous misunderstanding here. Having influence doesn't mean having control. Gen Z can create enormous cultural pressure, but governments still make laws. Governments can regulate companies, but they can't force people to trust them. Technology companies can control platforms, but they don't completely control what people believe. And algorithms can control attention, but they can't completely control human judgment. At least, not yet. And that's where the future becomes much more complicated. Because artificial intelligence is changing the game again. Imagine a world where political messages can be created for millions of people at the same time. Different message, different emotion, different target, different version of reality. Imagine seeing a video of a politician saying something shocking and having no idea whether it actually happened. Imagine thousands of fake voices, fake images, and fake stories appearing during an election. At that point, the biggest political weapon may not be information. It may be confusion. Because when people can't agree on what is real, they become easier to manipulate. And this is why Gen Z's relationship with government matters so much. This generation is growing up at the exact moment when privacy, artificial intelligence, social media, surveillance, and political power are colliding. They will eventually become voters, employees, entrepreneurs, journalists, engineers, lawyers, politicians, leaders. The people questioning today's systems may eventually become the people designing tomorrow's systems. And when that happens, they'll face the same question they are asking today. How much power is too much power? That's the real challenge. Because replacing one powerful system with another doesn't automatically create freedom. The goal shouldn't be to make Gen Z powerful enough to control the government. And it shouldn't be to make governments powerful enough to control Gen Z. The goal should be to build a world where no single institution has unlimited power over everyone else. A government should be strong enough to protect people, but limited enough to be questioned. Technology should be powerful enough to connect humanity, but accountable enough not to manipulate it. And individuals should have the freedom to speak, question, disagree, and think independently. Because in the digital age, freedom isn't only about what you're allowed to say. It's also about what you're allowed to think without someone secretly shaping the answer for you. Think about that the next time you open your phone. The video you're watching was recommended by something. The headline you clicked was designed to attract your attention. The advertisement you saw was targeted at you. The political message in your feed may have been selected because an algorithm predicted you'd react to it. And somewhere in that process, someone benefits from your attention. The question is, will you control your attention? Or will someone else control it for you? Maybe that's where the real power is. Not inside a government building, not inside a corporation, not inside an algorithm, but inside the ability to question what you're being shown. Because governments can create laws, companies can create platforms, AI can create information, algorithms can recommend what you see, But there is still one thing they shouldn't completely control: your judgment. So perhaps Gen Z isn't simply fighting the government, and the government isn't simply fighting Gen Z. They're both entering a world where the meaning of power itself is changing. The old question was, who controls the institutions? The new question is, who controls the information? And the question coming next may be even bigger. Who controls the machines that control the information? That battle has already begun, and Gen Z is standing right in the middle of it. So, who has the power? Maybe the answer isn't Gen Z. Maybe it isn't the government. Maybe the real power belongs to whoever can control attention without losing control of their own mind. And in a world where everyone wants your attention, thinking for yourself may become the most powerful form of freedom left.